The night was as dead as the bottom of a well. There was no wind or rain outside the window, only the monotonous hum of the distant highway. Jessie woke up with a strange feeling, as if someone was looking at her through the glass. Her heart began to beat faster, even before she heard a soft but clear knock on the window. Not loud, not nervous, even measured, like the pulse of someone else's presence. She got up carefully, pushed back the curtain, and saw that on the windowsill, among the dark spots of rain, there was an envelope. White, without any writing. She opened the window and, touching the cold paper, realized that it was damp, as if someone had held it in their hands for a long time before leaving it. Inside was only one sheet of paper with large block letters, "Your real name is the key." And that was it. No signature, no date. "Thomas," she called softly, but there was tension in her voice, as if she feared that the loud sound would shatter the fragile shell of night. He appeared almost immediately, his eyes sleepy but already alert. "What happened?" he asked, glancing at the envelope in her hands. Someone left it under the window," she replied, handing him the note. "Look." Thomas took the paper, and his face changed. "This is the handwriting of a typewriter." "An old one," he said, examining the letters carefully. "Or, someone deliberately tried to pretend that it was a typewriter so as not to leave their own handwriting." "And what?" Jessie sat on the edge of the bed, looking up at him. "What does this key mean?" He slowly sat down next to her, and his voice became quiet but heavy as stone. "It could be a metaphor. Or maybe it's a direct hint. If someone needs your real name as a key, then the question isn't who you are, but what your name can unlock." "I don't like this," she said, staring at the floor. "After the box, after what Leo told me, I thought the worst was over. And now, someone's playing with me again." Thomas squeezed her hand. "Maybe this isn't a game. Maybe this is a warning." "Then why did they leave him like thieves under the window in the middle of the night?" she snapped. "If this is someone who wants to help, why is he hiding?" He didn't answer right away. He just stood up, went to the window, and stared into the darkness for a long time. "Because maybe whoever brought it is afraid of the same thing we are," he finally said. "And if the key really exists, we're not the only ones hunting for it." Jessie felt the same cold foreboding that she had felt the night she had first read her father's letter. She stood up, walked over to the desk, and took Marlene's notebook from the drawer. There were some repeated phrases in there. She whispered, leafing through the pages. "Here, he knows where we are, and your name is not yours." Maybe she had already hinted at it then. Thomas came up and stood behind her. "If that's the case," he said, "then someone is continuing Marlene's work. And the question is it an ally, or the same enemy, just wearing a different mask?" They were silent for a long time, staring at the dry black letters that seemed to scream in the silence. Then Jessie raised her head. "We have to find out what this key is. And we have to start by finding the person who left this envelope." Thomas nodded slowly. "But be prepared, if we start looking, they'll start looking for us." Jessie smiled for the first time in a long time, but it was a bitter smile. "They've already found me, Thomas. Now it's my turn to find them." Rain began to fall outside the window, and its steady rustle was like a countdown. And each drop fell like a timestamp, bringing them closer to the moment when the key would find its lock. The city seemed the same as always in the morning, but Jessie knew it was a lie. Behind the familiar streets, a shadow lurked, and now she could almost feel it physically. Thomas drank his coffee in silence, his eyes fixed on the window. Leo, who had been spending the night in the living room, was talking to someone on the phone in a whisper, but as soon as he saw Jessie wake up, he cut off the conversation and put the phone in his pocket. "What secrets have you had since morning?" Her voice was even, but her eyes were narrowed, as if she were trying to read his thoughts. "Nothing," Leo shrugged, but there was too much haste in his movements. "Just an old acquaintance." Thomas put down his cup and finally spoke. I have an idea. We can check the security cameras around the house. If someone left an envelope under your window, they should be on the recording. And you think he didn't cover his face? Jesse asked skeptically. Even if I closed it, he answered, there would be other details, posture, clothing, the way they moved. They quickly gathered. Leo suggested starting with the store across the street. There was a camera there that could film the approach to the house. The store owner, an elderly man with tired eyes, at first refused to show the recordings, but when Jesse mentioned the name Marlene, he froze. Did you know her? He asked quietly. Yes, she answered. And I think someone connected to her came to my window last night. He sighed and, without another word, led them into the back room. On the old monitor, he rewound the video until the time hand stopped at 3 a.m. The camera showed a dark figure in a hood slowly approaching the house. She walked confidently, but stopped a few meters away, looked back and raised her head to Jesse's window. Then she put something on the windowsill and walked towards the narrow alley. Stop, Jesse said when the figure barely turned sideways. The face was hidden by the shadow of the hood, but under it a silver chain with a key pendant was visible. Thomas and Leo exchanged glances. It's not a coincidence, Thomas said. Marlene left you a key pendant, and this person wears the same one. I know this key, Leo added quietly, as if confessing something dangerous. I saw it many years ago, on the neck of a man everyone thought was dead. Jessie felt a chill run down her spine. Who is he? Leo was silent for a few seconds, as if he was considering whether to say the name. Then he said. His name was Gareth. He was in the inner circle of people who decided Marlene's fate. And if he's alive, that means the whole story about his death was made up to hide his real role. And where is he now? Jesse asked sharply. If he's here, then he's already here, Leo replied. But it's not easy to find him. Gareth never leaves a trace. Thomas leaned forward. Anyone leaves a trace. The question is, will we be able to see them? They left the store, and the cold wind immediately sent shivers down their spines. Jessie clutched her key ring in her pocket and felt it grow warm, as if reacting to the approach of the one who once owned it. There was only one thought going through her head: if Gareth was really alive and he was knocking on her door, then the key opened not just the past, but something much darker. They decided to act immediately. Thomas insisted that they couldn't wait for Gareth to show up himself. That would mean he was in control. Jessie agreed, although deep down she knew that even if they found him, they wouldn't be able to dictate the terms. Leo, on the other hand, looked too focused, as if he already had a route in mind that would take them straight to their destination. There's a place he could show up, Leo said as they got into the car. That used to be his meeting point. An old factory on the outskirts that they never demolished. It's always quiet there, but sometimes they leave signs there for those who know how to read. The drive was long and drawn out, as if time had been deliberately stretched out, making them aware of every moment. Outside the window, dark fields crept past, turning into a solid black strip. Jessie sat in the back seat, her key ring in her hands, and the metal seemed to pulse more as they got closer. Are you sure you want to see him? Thomas asked suddenly, his eyes fixed on the road. If Gareth is who Leo says he is, he knows more than we can imagine. And he's not the kind of guy who will just tell the truth when asked. I don't want to see him, Jessie said, staring into the darkness. I have to. When they reached the factory, the air was still, like before a storm. The building stood, warped by time, its windows broken, and the dim moonlight filtering through. Leo was the first to get out of the car, motioning for them to be quiet. They went inside. Inside, the smell was of rust and dust and something sweet, like stale paper. There was a fresh mark on the wall near the stairs, 3 vertical scratches made by something sharp. Leo ran his finger over them. That's him. His signature. They went up to the second floor. In the semi-darkness, under the broken roof, stood an old wooden table. On it was a lit candle and another envelope. Jessie went over and took it in her hands. Inside was just one piece of paper. "You're late. But I'm coming to meet you. Don't look for me, I'll find you. And when we meet, you'll know I'm not the enemy." "Damn it," Thomas cursed quietly. "He's the one running the game, not us." "He's always done it," Leo added, clenching his fists. "But if he already knows where you are, Jessie, then get ready, he'll show up when you least expect it." Jessie stared at the letters, feeling a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. There was no threat in the words, but there was power. And most of all, she felt that she wanted to see this man, to finally understand why he was so sure of his rightness. They left the factory, and the cold air hit her face. In the distance, on the other side of the road, a tall figure in a dark cloak appeared for a moment in the light of a lantern. It did not move, just stood there, looking in their direction. "Is that him?" Thomas asked, peering into the darkness. "Yes," Jessie said quietly, although the face was impossible to see under the hood. "And he wants me to know he is here." The figure stood there for a few more seconds, then slowly disappeared into the shadows, as if it had never been there. "The hunt has begun," Jessie whispered. And this time she wasn't sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. Jessie couldn't sleep for a long time that night. The figure in the dark cloak kept haunting her mind, its still silhouette, a gaze she could feel even through the darkness. Thomas slept on the couch in the living room, Leo stayed in the car, saying he wanted to watch the perimeter. But despite all the precautions, Jessie knew deep down that if Gareth wanted to, he would show up, regardless of locks, doors, or people around. Around 2 in the morning, she heard a soft sound, not a knock or a creak, but more like a breath mixed with the movement of air. She opened her eyes and saw a shadow in the doorway. Her heart pounded so hard that her vision went black for a moment. "Don't scream," came the low, calm but confident wail. Gareth stood there, not trying to hide. His face was partially covered by a hood, but the moonlight showed deep wrinkles that made his gaze even heavier. He held his hands open, demonstrating that he had no weapon. "How did you get in?" Jessie whispered, standing up. "If I tell you the door was open, you won't believe me. If I tell you the locks are no problem for me, you'll be even more scared. So let's just assume I'm just here." She felt everything inside her tighten with conflicting emotions, fear, anger, and a strange, almost morbid curiosity. "What do you want?" "Not you," he answered calmly, taking a step into the room. "And not even the key you're thinking of." "Then why these games? Notes, appearing at night?" He smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in the smile. "Because you don't understand yet that a key is not an object. It's a choice. Once you make it, there's no going back." Jessie clenched her fists. "I'm not going to play your riddles. If you know the truth, tell me." "The truth is simple," Gareth said, sitting down on the edge of the table. "Your real name opens the door to who you were before you were changed. It's not just about you, Jessie. It's about the people who stayed on the other side. And if you decide to use this key, they will find you. And maybe take you away." "Who are they?" He paused for a few seconds, looking straight into her eyes, as if assessing whether she was ready to hear. "Those who once decided that your place was here, not there. Those who believed that you should live under a different name, with a different story, with different people. And you were among them." Her voice trembled treacherously. "I was the one who tried to do things differently. But I was forced to disappear." She took a step toward him. "If I don't use this key, what will happen? You will remain who you are now. With Thomas. With this life. And no one else will come. And if I do?" His voice became even quieter, but each word cut like a blade. You will get the truth. But you will pay for it with everything you have. They stared at each other for a long time. Finally he stood up, approached, and placed another key pendant in her hand, identical to her own. Now you have two. One for the past, the other for the future. The choice of which one to use is yours. He moved toward the door as quietly as he had appeared. Wait, she cried, are you coming back? He stopped, but didn't turn around. Whenever you decide. The door closed behind him, and Jessie stood there in silence with two keys in her hands, knowing that a choice was inevitable, but that each side of that choice was an abyss. Morning rolled slowly through the city, as if trying to hold back the night that had left a bitter taste in Jessie's heart. Thomas, waking up, noticed her in the kitchen. She sat motionless, holding two key pendants in her hands, and did not take her eyes off the cold metal. The light from the window fell on her face so that the shadows emphasized the fatigue and tension in every feature. What is this? He came closer, noticing the second pendant. She did not answer immediately. He was here, Thomas. Last night. He froze. Gareth? Yes. And he said that the key is a choice. One leads to the truth, the other leaves everything as it is. Thomas looked at her for a long time, then sat down next to her. And what did you decide? I don't know, her voice broke. If I open the door to the past, I might lose you. This life. This house. But if I leave everything behind, I'll live with the fact that I could have known the truth and refused. Jessie, he took her hand, sometimes the truth is a trap. And there's nothing in it but pain. And sometimes it's the only thing worth risking, she countered, and her eyes flashed with the same light that brightens a person before taking a leap into the unknown. They sat in silence. Somewhere behind the wall, Leo was talking on the phone, but the words were drowned out by the dull roar of blood in his ears. Jessie carefully placed one key on the table, leaving the other in her hand. I have to choose, she said quietly. She stood up and went to the old closet in the corner of the room. She opened the door, and for the first time, Thomas noticed a small keyhole he hadn't thought of before. Jessie leaned over, inserted the key, and froze. If I turn it back, we'll go all the way, she said, her eyes fixed on the lock. If not, everything will remain as it was. Thomas came over and stood beside her, but he didn't touch her hand. This is your life, Jessie. And only you have the right to decide. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath. The key in the lock turned slightly, but whether it was a random movement or the beginning of a decision, no one would know. The camera seemed to move back, the kitchen table with the second key, their figures by the old cupboard, the morning light slowly changing to a dim grayish haze. And somewhere, far beyond this house, someone was already waiting to see what decision she would make. Because each key was not just a door. This was a path that would be impossible to walk back.